You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
During a recent appearance on the Not Skinny, Not Fat podcast, which is an odd name for a podcast, Kristen Stewart from Twilight and the new movie she's out in, I think it's called Where There Will Be Blood. She stated that making a superhero movie sounds like a effing nightmare. She also said, I will likely never do a Marvel movie, before going on to reveal that there was one exception, of course, if Greta Gerwig, the director of Barbie, were to ask her to do a Marvel movie, then she would do it. Now, I find it fascinating when actors come out and talk about parts they want or studios they won't work with without having been in contact with said studio. Alan Richardson, guy playing Jack Reacher, he's played in the Titans as Hawk. He was Aquaman on Smallville. Guy's blowing up. He's in the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. He's signing movie deals all the time. Well, he has said that he would be more than happy to play Batman. He would love to play Batman. Mind you, the only people asking were fans. DC never contacted him about it. Now, according to James Gunn, there's been no casting at all for Brave and the Bold because there's no script for it yet. Now, Marvel likes to have meetings to touch base with various actors with the idea of kind of gauging their interest. But Stewart never said she met with Marvel or that she had turned down a meeting or a role, just randomly saying she wouldn't work with them. Now, part of the problem is the questions that interviewers are asking, because it would be like asking a woman that if she got divorced and was looking to date again, would she be interested in this random dude over there? Those questions are a waste of time and just meant to create clickbait, because saying Kristen Stewart won't work with Marvel or Kristen Stewart wants to play this Marvel character is a better headline than Stewart talks about her latest movie. And the actors should know better than even saying anything. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. It is Thursday, March 28th, I'm thinking. Sure. And we've got a lot of fun stuff for today. We are going to talk about the trailer for The Penguin that dropped. It was a teaser trailer. But it got me thinking about some stuff. Also, we are going to cover the news. But I want you guys to keep in mind that there's a lot of great stuff here on The Experience today. Miss Jen is doing What's in the Box, and she's got a bunch of Thundercats books. So if you've missed some of the various covers or the variant covers or stuff like that, tune into her show. The Geek Chat will be talking about some of the new number ones, including the new Batman Dark Knight. I think that's what it's called. But it's, the new X-Men 97 comic and the new Feral book from Tony, Love Lies Bleeding, thank you. From Tony Fleece, Trish Forstner, I think Tone Rodriguez are involved in that. They're great people, so definitely check out Feral. And then tonight on SketchUp, they welcome the creators of Geek Girl. Yeah, it's Sam Johnson and Granda C. So they will be on the show. Did you watch episode 97, episode 3? I so far have watched only the first episode. I haven't had a chance to watch the second or third. I was not a big X-Men animated series fan when it came out. I was a little too old for it. And while I'm hearing nothing but great about X-Men 97, the first episode really was very dramatic. Almost soap opera-like. So I'll get back to it, but I'm not rushing back to it. Just like I still got to get back to the Bad Batch season 3, but I'll get there. Lisa has moved in. I spent most of my time helping her and stuff, and she doesn't watch a lot. It's C. Granado. Was a typo in the thumbnail. Okay. Granda, excuse me, C. Granda. She doesn't watch a lot of TV, so we haven't really watched much TV since she got here. But all right, hello Ed, hello Triple B, and let's kick it. Oh, by the way, we have JD on the board, so let's get to the news. If you guys watched Sandman or Logan, you probably noticed an actor named Boyd Holbrook. Now, Boyd is a very interesting actor. He tends to get your attention when he's on screen. Well, there's a rumor going around now that he is being cast, or at least has been offered the role in Batman Part 2 as Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face. Now, the timing of the rumor is interesting because the movie has just been postponed a year from October of 2025 to October 2nd of 2026. But part of the rumor said that Holbrook was the choice for the role, but couldn't sign on because he had commitments to other projects, including another James Mangold project called A Complete Unknown. Now, the delay has allowed Holbrook to join the cast. Now, the character of Dent, of course, is the district attorney working with Jim Gordon and Batman to bring down the crime in Gotham City when he's attacked by a witness who throws acid in Dent's face. The trauma and damage cause a split personality that leads to the villain Two-Face. Now, he's been previously played by Billy D. Williams up in the Tim Burton movies, Tommy Lee Jones when Joel Schumacher took over, and Aaron Eckhart when played by in the Christian Bale movies. So, for some reason, I think Richard Mole played him in the animated series. I always think about that because I always think Batman the Animated Series is on the level as all the live action stuff. Now, it's possible the character does appear in the sequel, but he might only appear as Dent. It might be a setup with him coming into the third movie. He could just be a background character. Or, maybe they get to him, maybe they don't, just kind of filling in the universe. Hey, Kenneth, good to see you. But Holbrook, if you've seen Logan, like I said, he played Donald Pierce. And if you've seen The Sandman, he was the Corinthian, the one with the messed up eyes, and was kind of the big bad for the season. Now, this is still a rumor, but once again, it's gaining steam. According to an insider named Jeff Snyder, Part 2 will begin principal photography in April of 2025, and this allows Matt Reeves and his creative team to, over the next year, finalize the script for the film and ramp up its casting search. However, there will be no official casting announcements before this fall, so it's possible they're getting things lined up, but whether or not this is true, it's going to be a while before we know it. Hydrosium Comics. Hey, how you doing? Billy D got to voice Two-Face in the Lego Batman movie, right? Yeah, I think he did. And if you really want to throw one in there, William Shatner got to voice him in the Batman 66 animated series. Oh, it's Jay. Okay. Hello, Jay. Don't know why you're on that one, but okay. All right, let's move on. Yesterday, Florence Pugh, Hydrocilium. Okay. Yesterday, Florence Pugh shared a video from the set of the upcoming Thunderbolts, which showed off at least one of her costumes, which looked like a very military outfit, from the filming, along with parts of the set and the logo on the back of the director's chair, while she was talking to the film's director, Jake Schreier. Now, we didn't see any of the other cast, but we know that the cast is going to include Wyatt Russell, David Harbour, Sebastian Stan, Hannah John Kamen, Olga Kurylenko, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. There's also reports that Rachel Weisz might return as her role as Melina Vostokov. Lawrence Fishburne might return as Bill Foster, and Lewis Pullman is said to be playing Robert Reynolds / the Sentry. Again, those are still unconfirmed. But shortly after that video was released, there was a new report from Scooper Daniel RPK saying that Pugh showed off what was called the Vault, which is where they find the Sentry. And the other thing he shared is that Bucky Barnes will not be a part of the Thunderbolts, at least in the beginning. This is an interesting rumor, since when the cast was originally introduced, Kevin Feige said that Bucky would become the de facto leader of the group. Now, either the story has changed or something's going to go horribly wrong and he's going to have to join and take over. So I find that interesting. We also got some news on Avengers 5, formerly known as Kang Dynasty. Even though the film still doesn't have a director, since Destin Daniel Cretton stepped away, it's supposed to begin production in 2025. Now, there's been a rumor that either Sam Raimi or Sean Levy might be in line to helm the project, but no official word has come out. It is possible that Marvel is saving all of the upcoming announcements for D23 in August. Now, we do know that Loki showrunner Michael Waldron is going to be writing Avengers 5 and the follow-up Avengers Secret Wars. Also, we hear that Marvel is planning on continuing to move forward with Kang as the villain and will recast the role since firing Jonathan Majors. Now, Avengers 5 is scheduled to be released May 1st, 2026, so they are going to have to get a move on. All right. Again, we got a lot of rumors of Marvel movies. Even though the Marvels itself did not perform well at the box office, it appears that Marvel still has big plans for Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. While a third movie is not expected anytime soon, Alex Perez of the Cosmic Circus says that Brie Larson's character will still play an important part in the multiverse saga. He says, "I have heard Carol's role in the MCU as of now is to focus on two things. The first is to decipher the true origins of the quantum bands from the Marvels, with Carol presenting her angle to Wong and Banner while Kamala does the same, albeit with a couple of new friends along the way. The second thing is to find a way to bring Monica back to the MCU, but given what we know about incursions, they might find their way back to each other sooner than expected." Ed says, "Do we know when the new Spider-Man movie is coming?" There's been no official confirmation on that. There is talk about it starting to film either at the end of this year or early next year. But again, that's probably something we won't know until D23 at the earliest. Okay, moving on. Emmy and Academy Award nominated producer David Permut and Safdie Brothers producer Oscar Boyson are teaming up with an author, filmmaker, Matthew Klickstein, to bring the San Diego Comic-Con origin story to life for the first time on screen in a new documentary based on Klickstein's book, See You at San Diego, An Oral History of Comic-Con Fandom and the Triumph of Geek Culture. Now, it will follow how a group of teenage fans, Ziensters, illustrators, stoners, hippies, weirdos, bookworms, and science buffs in the late 60s joined forces with an unemployed 30-something comic fan to create what has now become one of the most influential pop culture events ever. You know, it's in the Guinness Book of World Records being the biggest convention ever. So, all right, moving on I don't know if you guys watch Welcome to Wrexham. I'm a fan. I got hooked on it. Deadline is reporting that FX has pushed back the kickoff time for the third season of Welcome to Wrexham. The docuseries was set to premiere Season 3 on Thursday, April 18th, but this has now been pushed to Thursday, May 2nd. Now, FX gave no reason for the move. The series, of course, airs on the linear network first and then streams on Hulu the next day. The premiere will include the first 2 episodes. Now, if you're not familiar with the show, welcome to Wrexham, which won the Emmy Award for Outstanding Unstructured Reality Program, follows a British football team that Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds bought, as they are currently navigating the English Football League after achieving promotions to the next league up. For the first time ever, Season 3 will have unprecedented access to the pitch, the field, bringing viewers inside the locker room and alongside the players while the action is unfolding in some of the biggest matches Wrexham AFC has ever played. It will also follow Wrexham's AFC's women's team, fresh off of an undefeated season that saw them promoted to the Welsh Adran Premier League. So since Rob and Ryan have taken over, the team is doing really well, and it's kind of neat to watch the story. I do recommend the series if you're even a tiny bit interested in sports, but there's so much human nature and stuff in it that is just a really, really great watch. So, all right, guys, that is the news. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back, and we're going to talk about the Penguin. Be right back.
Symphonic verses, nocturne's romance. A song of romanticized darkness, dreaming dead by sleep.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey. And behind every page, there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. We're going to be talking about the Penguin, but I want to address something Triple B just said in the comments. He says, I really like X-Men 97. Some say it's saving the MCU. Not too sure about that, but it's awesome. I find it fascinating that everything from Marvel these days is either saving or destroying the MCU. Nothing's ever just good. It's like whelmed. You can be underwhelmed and you can be overwhelmed. But when was the last time you were just whelmed? Nobody talks about being whelmed. So it's funny that everything is the extremes. X-Men 97, it's good. Like I said, I thought it was the art's good, story was good. It's obviously following the storyline from the Morlocks and stuff like that, where Storm loses her powers. But I don't think it's, I don't think it's saving or condemning. Just like I don't think Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania or the Marvels destroyed the MCU. It's just movies, people, and TV shows. I don't know. It's Jay says, make whelmed a thing again. Ed says, I haven't been whelmed in way too long. And of course, JD says, I was whelmed by my instant coffee this morning. If anything is going to whelm you, it's going to be instant coffee. Yeah, but all right. Let's jump into talking about the Penguin. Now, as you guys know, I loved The Batman by Matt Reeves. I was skeptical about Robert Pattinson. I am not skeptical about him anymore. I am not skeptical about any of the stuff in there, including the weird-ass decision to cast Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot and spend a fortune in time and makeup to make him look just like Richard Kind. Still not sure why they did that. But that aside, damn is Farrell good in the role. Then they dropped the trailer, the teaser trailer for the upcoming series, and we know we're going to get it this fall, and that's exciting, especially with the Batman having been Batman 2 moved till 2026. So this will be that little, fix to get us there. But that trailer, I want to start with the fact that there was a very odd Easter egg in there. Now, I don't know if you guys caught this, but there's a name dropped in it. And the scene, I mean, it's got a bunch of stuff in it, but the main thing is you have Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, played by Colin Farrell, and he's sitting there talking to somebody, probably the young street kid he takes in and kind of makes him his second or his assistant. But he's talking about how there was this older gangster in his neighborhood when he was growing up named Rex Calabrese that he really admired when he was a kid. And Calabrese died, still holding a cigar in his mouth. And when he passed, there was a parade for him and stuff. And he was, that really meant a lot to Penguin. Like, that's the height of how you die. Now, of course, the movie is taking place after the Batman. It's supposed to take place just a few days after the Batman. So Gotham is still underwater in many parts. The crime families are all up in arms because Carmine Falcone is dead. There's a power vacuum. There's a lot going on. And all that might excuse anybody who missed the name drop, the Rex Calabrese name. But Calabrese is an interesting character. He's not a long-time DC character. He's only been around about 10 years. He was introduced in Batman Eternal #1 under the alias of Leo Leone. He was in prison. Jim Gordon went to prison as well in that story, and they ended up in the same cell. And you find out that Leo is an assumed name for a former crime boss named Rex the Lion Calabrese. And the Lion is known because he had basically steel teeth, and he would rip the jugular out of his enemies with his teeth. There are better ways to get nicknames. There really are. But in the Batman Eternal storyline, there was a bit of a retcon. Now, prior to that, ever since The Long Halloween by Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb, it was pretty much understood that Selina Kyle was the actual daughter of Carmine Falcone. Well, in Batman Eternal, it changes it that Selina is actually the child of Rex Calabrese, and that she gets the Kyle name when she goes into foster care and into a home with the Kyle family. Now, again, Cobblepot speaks of Calabrese as being dead, which, he faked his death in the comics. Maybe he's faking his death here. Will this play into Zoe Kravitz's Selina Kyle? We don't know. But the fact is that it's potential, It's strange for them to pull that particular name, isn't it? It seems like you could have picked any mob boss name. Could have called the guy Anthony Soprano. Montana, Montana, anything. And they went with Calabrese, who is tied to Catwoman. So we will have to see if that'll work out. There's been no reports that Zoe Kravitz is going to pop up in the movie or the TV show, but there's that potential. Now, if you're looking to figure what the tone of the series is going to be, Colin Farrell was talking about it recently to Moviesign, and he said, it was a long and really wonderful experience. It's dark. That's what I can tell you about it. It's really dark. It's really heavy, I think. It certainly was doing it, which is not to say I didn't have fun. I had an amazing time doing it. It's incredibly violent. It's one man's rise to what he's always dreamed of inhabiting, which is a certain power or social status. The death of Carmine Falcone at the end of the Batman leaves this vacuum in Gotham to be filled. And so there are various people that are grabbing for the power. This is Oswald's journey, trying to rise to the top through extraordinary obstacles. Okay, that sounds great to me. Now, again, we're going to look at this Penguin series. Now, the casting of Colin Farrell was interesting to me. As I said before, he's far from the classic look of the character. Previously, Cobblepot included Burgess Meredith in the Batman 66 series. Small guy, Danny DeVito in Batman Returns, another small guy. Now, in Gotham, they went a different route with Robin Lord Taylor, who didn't fit that mold, but the way he portrayed him was absolutely brilliant. And then, even when they cast Batman the Animated Series, they went to Paul Williams, who's just this little guy. So it's pretty fascinating that they're kind of following, even with the voice actor, they're following in the stories, or the design of the character, but now they're getting away from it. Now, again, Taylor was not the typical look for Penguin, but he did a remarkable job. But unlike Taylor, Farrell is going through a long makeup process, which really gives him this overweight feel, the birdish nose, the scars on his face. He looks like he's been through hell. And when he puts on the makeup and he changes his voice, he goes from the Irish brogue to this Jersey-ish type New York accent. You don't even see Farrell in there anymore. I mean, you lose him and you get the Penguin. So Ed says, you think there's any chance Pattinson shows up as Bruce or Batman? I doubt it, but it would be a cool surprise. I have heard that Pattinson showed up on set one day. Now, was he just there to visit? Matt's his friend. Colin, they worked together, or was he filming a scene? We'll have to wait and see. But the word is that Pattinson did show up on set for at least one day. So, all right. So now, the Penguin was kind of a smaller role in the Batman. He wasn't the lead villain or anything like that. But you could really get a feel for the character, and the film sets up the series to be something unique in the DCU. Now, something Kevin Feige realized early on with Marvel was that superheroes is not a genre. In the same way that police or a lawyer is not a genre. They're descriptors of the lead character that will work in various types of films. I mean, look at the first Captain America movie. That was a superhero movie. That was a war movie. Cap carried a gun. They shot indiscriminately. There was no question of innocent bystanders or anything like that because it was a war movie. Yeah. Look at the first Hulk, the Hulk movie with Ed Norton. The first bulk of that movie was a horror movie. You didn't see the Hulk. He was in shadows. He was scaring the hell out of the soldiers. Ant-Man. Ant-Man was a heist movie that had a lot of underlying humor. It was like Ocean's 11. And Spider-Man was basically a John Hughes coming-of-age film. And that's when Marvel works, is when they don't sit down to make a superhero movie. They sit down to make a good whatever movie that happens to have a superhero in it. And that's the thing that other companies like DC and stuff haven't figured out, is they try to make these superhero elements into a movie, and there has to be something else. Now, Matt Reeves seems to understand this too. He made the Batman into a classic film noir that just happened to have a costume vigilante in the lead. You might remember we focused on that for an entire show back at the end of January, going through all the elements of film noir and what matched and what didn't. And that is, the Batman is a classic film noir. Now, he appears to be doing that again with the Penguin, putting aside that he's a comic book villain and focusing more on a classic gangster film elements. Gangster film elements. Yeah, or gangster story. That could put this show on par with The Sopranos or Scarface. Iron Man, I always felt, was more of like a RoboCop or a sci-fi movie, you know. Yeah, I put it more on a sci-fi movie. Now, if you don't believe me that The Penguin is just totally a gangster movie, pull up two videos at the same time on YouTube. One, the band Alabama 3 and their song Woke This Morning, which of course is the theme song for The Sopranos. The other, play the Penguin track. And while Oswald's sitting there talking about Rex Calabrese, and you hear, woke this morning, got yourself a gun, you could easily take Penguin out and put Tony Soprano there. It's the same thing. It feels like a Sopranos thing. Let's see. Ed says Cap 2, The Winter Soldiers, was such a solid story. It didn't have to be a Captain America film. Could have easily been a Bond film or a Jack Reacher movie. It was excellent. The Russo brothers specifically tried to make Captain America 2 into a 70s style spy thriller like the Dog Day Afternoon. What is it? The Robert Redford one. Is it The Eagle Has Landed or something like that? So they were really following that. Robo-Westerns and New Genre. 3 Days of the Jackal. Yeah, that's another good example, you know. So that's when these superhero movies work well, is when they make a genre movie and then put a superhero in it. And the TV series are the same way. So that's what they're doing here with The Sopranos. So this leads to the question, what makes a gangster story? And of those elements, which ones do we already have going into the series and which ones we might get along the way? Yeah, 3 Days of the Condor. That's it. That's the one I was trying to think of. The Jackal was a different one. 3 Days of the Condor. So yeah, let's break down the Penguin as a setup for a gangster story using the elements. And there are basically 10 elements to look for in a gangster movie or series. And we start off with the obvious one, a street smart protagonist. Now, Oswald is not our hero, but he is our protagonist. He's the character that moves the story forward. One of the things you'll notice about Farrell's version of the character is he's a lot more charismatic than, say, Danny DeVito's in Batman Returns. You know, Oswald in Batman Returns was disgusting. You wanted to look away from him. He was always dirty. He was always covered in goo and stuff. He was creepy. So that is what you do when he's a sub-character, a villain. But if you're making him the lead of your gangster story, he's got to be charming. This is a version that even though he's going to be doing horrible things, the confidence that he has and the charm will make the viewer want to see what he does next. That's the key to making a gangster story work. The audience has to be repulsed by his actions, yet eager to see what he does next. And I think Farrell made that happen in the Batman. Now he just has to carry that forward. And again, that's what worked in The Sopranos. It's what worked in Scarface. It's what works when your main protagonist is the gangster. I mean, you can flip it and do, The Untouchables, and Robert De Niro didn't have to be charming. He didn't have to be likable to the audience, or he just had to be a scary threat. And we got that. Ed says it was great in the Batman when Penguin was tied up by Gordon and Batman and they left. He walked tied up and paid homage to the Penguin walk. That was a great little Easter egg. Yes. Yeah, it was. And that, and calling out the fact that the both of them were horrible with Spanish. I thought that was a nice touch too. All right. So what's the second element? And the second element is one we haven't necessarily seen much of yet. We don't know if it's going to be how well it's going to be represented. And it depends on the type of movie. Sometimes you can get away without it. Sometimes you need it. And that's law enforcement. You look at The Untouchables, Elliot Ness is necessary in The Untouchables. He's the lead. While other series, they're more of a background character. Like I said, I'm going to go back to The Sopranos here. The FBI wanting him and, trying to track him and trying to turn his allies against him and stuff. That was always done in the background. But it was important because there needed to be this looming threat. But and the threat to the police, it really needs to be there throughout the whole story. You want the lead to feel like he can get away with anything, but you don't want the audience to feel that. You want the audience to know there is something trying to get him. And again, that will make the audience go, but I want him to succeed. I want to see what happens. And it almost makes the cops the bad guys, but they're not at the same time. Now, there's been there has to be some kind of threat to keep the protagonist from achieving his goal too early or too easily. And even if there are other threats like rival bosses, stuff like that, the law enforcement element needs to be there at least in some level. And I'm sure we're going to get it. I'm sure there's going to be some police officers, stuff like that. Even if they're on the take of other gangs and they're working against Oswald, it's got to be there. What is it you're seeing that I'm not, JD? Is it still doing that? Okay. So that's the second element. Now, the third element is really easy. We've already seen it, and it's organized crime. This is a well-established in the Batman and Carmine Falcone, Salvatore Maroni, and the corrupt cops and officials. The story shouldn't be about the protagonist trying to build the mob. It's about him trying to take over in the existing structure, going from nothing to a made man while surviving the world of killers. Now, the dictionary definition of mafia is an organized international body of criminals operating originally in Sicily and now especially in Italy and the US, and having a complex and ruthless behavioral code. That's exactly what Falcone was running. That's what exists in Gotham, and that's what Penguin's going to try to take over. So 3 elements in, good on 2, the third one likely. Another one that we're really good on is the next one, which is location. Gangster stories often happen in large, crowded cities. This creates the contrast between the unsuspecting members of the community with the back alley transaction of the criminals. The gangsters, they need the city to blend in as well as operate their vast networks. Gotham is a perfect city for that because of the corruption that has already been established. It would be difficult to do this kind of story in a bright, futuristic metropolis because it would be hard to believe that even low-level crime could exist with that much light shining on it. But the dark streets of Gotham, they're tailor-made for crime. It's perfect. We're also getting the next element in spades, and that would be the rivals for the throne. With Falcone dead, there's this vacuum that the Penguin is trying to fill, but he's not alone in that. We finally meet Falcone's own rival, Salvatore Maroni, who's going to be played by the great Clancy Brown. And by the way, if you do not start Clancy Brown's name without the great, then you're being a disservice. Clancy Brown is awesome. Now, Maroni, of course, started the drop business in Gotham. That's the big drug trade. Falcone worked with the police to bring Maroni down so that he could then take over the drug trade and buy off the cops with it. Kind of an interesting setup. Now, Maroni is currently in jail. Then there's also Falcone's children. Sophia, played by Kristen Milotti, and there are rumors about Alberto appearing, but no casting has been confirmed. Now, Sophia will likely be the main rival for Oswald and is seen in the comics as wanting to take over her father's business. So it makes a lot of sense for them to follow that up here. There's also the Calabrese name drop. I mean, is that just a random name drop, or is he going to be another person that works in there? JD says, one of the best underrated actors of our age. Absolutely. Clancy Brown. I love everything he's in. He always makes everything better. Now, there's another group of these elements that, again, we're going to get. There has to be violence, like guns, money, and drugs. And I think it's a pretty safe bet from the clips we've seen and that Farrell's talking about how dark it is that we're going to have guns, money, and drugs, or as Warren Zevon would say, lawyers, guns, and money. So there's also supposed to be family ties to crime families, and we already get that with Falcone's daughter. One that is slightly changed is that there's also always a big boss, a gangland chief, and here the boss is already dead. So it's a battle to become the next boss, and there needs to be a violent climax. I think it's pretty safe to say that we're going to get a violent climax in this series. It wouldn't surprise me if Penguin is the only one to make it out of this alive. I mean, if this was going to be an ongoing series, like multiple seasons, then sure, you want to keep some recurring characters around. But I get the feeling this is going to be kind of a one-and-done show to focus on the rise of Penguin. And once he's there, the focus will kind of move him back into the Batman movies and, going up against the Batman and not his inner workings with organized crime. Ed says, I loved him in Shawshank and Star Trek Enterprise. Yep. The Kurgan from the Highlander. He was also in Sleepy Hollow. He's the voice of Lex Luthor in the Superman animated series. He's just freaking great. Now, the last most common thing you get in gangster movies, now this may or may not be in this one, and that is a revenge plot. Now, Oswald doesn't really have anyone to get revenge against. The only person that seems to have betrayed him was Falcone by turning the cops on Maroni, and Falcone is already dead. Penguin didn't kill Falcone, even though he wanted to. So unless Sophia believes he was involved, there's really a revenge story there. Even Maroni's anger would have been pointed at the newly departed Falcone. But this is one of the more transitory elements in gangster stories and may not need to be there. So we shall see. JD says, I love this idea in which Marvel would take it. Don't do shows about lower level heroes. Use the shows to develop the villains. Yeah. Yep, that's a good one. The Doctor Doom series would be awesome. All right. So now I can't say for sure that Reeves sat down to write a gangster story. But it seems like he has either way, and it's a brilliant move. Too many superhero movies are trying to follow a playbook that doesn't exist because, again, superheroes are not a genre. Part of what makes Batman and Superman great is their differences, especially when they team up. But the characters aren't interchangeable. You couldn't drop Superman into a Batman story and have it end the same way. And I don't just mean because their powers are different. Batman is a detective that works in the shadows, while Superman is basically a god and a symbol of hope. Too many of the movies coming out are just trying to copy the other successful superhero movies instead of finding the right genre and story for the character. Marvel has this mostly figured out, but the previous regime at DC definitely didn't. Reeves seems to have gotten it right and created a strong film noir for Batman and what is looking to be like a classic gangster story for Penguin. I wonder if he'll keep the noir for the second Batman or if he's going to go in a different direction. Either way, I will be there opening weekend to see it. All right, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, we've got some key collectibles for Penguin, and that'll wrap up the show. So we'll be right back.
Comic Collectibles is a pretty straightforward show. You got Rex here, he sells the comics, and you got Rockin' Robbie, he knows about the comics. And finally, John, well, no one really knows what John does. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy, but he just keeps showing up. Come to think of it, I don't even really know how he gets in here. Anyway, awesome comics, rare books, rarer signatures, slabbed books, and amazing cover sketches by Ken Hazer and others. Simple formula, you want the comics, you buy the comics. To sum up, Rex sells the comics, Robbie knows the comics, and John, who might possibly be a ghost. I mean, seriously, has anyone ever seen him show up or leave? Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, Mondays from 6 to 8 Eastern on The Experience. Comic Culture and Sales.
Do you remember what it was like when you were a little kid and you got a letter in the mail? Now imagine that letter was filled with information about your favorite shows, pop culture questions, links to things you're going to want to see later, and even sneak peeks at upcoming programming here on The Experience. That's what the EXP mailing list is. Every week, we send you sneak peeks, information, and all of the relevant links for all of the shows you want to see. Sign up now on our website or scan the QR code that's on your screen right now.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. Remember to stick around for What's in the Box, then the Geek Chat and Sketch Up. Tomorrow we've got original art show with Nick and Nancy and her crew at Comics Unlimited doing Friday Night Live. On Saturday we're going to have Jam City Comics and a special Fat Jacks because they're going to be closed on Easter. And then I hope you all have a great Easter Sunday. So, okay, let's do our key collectibles for the day, focusing on the Penguin. There we go. We start with Detective Comics number 58 from 1951. This is the first appearance of the Penguin. This goes for $35,000 on the high end, 11.5 on the median, and 3.5 on the low. Then we get Detective Comics number 67 from 1942. This is the first cover appearance by the Penguin, riding an ostrich for some reason. High end on this is $15K, median is $5, low end is $1,500. Then, of course, the first time he appeared on the actual Batman comic was in 1942, Batman number 14. High end on this is $7,200, median's $1,900, low end is $725. Batman number 25 from 1944 was the first time any major Batman villains teamed up. This was the Joker and the Penguin. High end on this is $4,500, median's $14, low end is $450. Detective Comics number 99 from 1949. This is classic Penguin cover art by the great Dick Sprang. High end on this is $2,100, median is $820, low end is $215. Then we jump all the way to 1963, Batman number 155. This is his first Silver Age of appearance of the Penguin. High end on this is $2,100, median is $840, low end is $215. And then we get Batman number 169 from 1965, second Silver Age appearance of Batman. Now you'll note I put Batman TV. I'm going to explain that in just a second. High end on this is $380, median is $95, the low end is $35. This came out 2 months prior to the Riddler's return to the Silver Age. And as many of you know, that it was an assistant to Sherwood Schwartz, the guy who first put together the Batman series. I think it's Sherwood Schwartz. I may be getting that name wrong, or it's Greenwood or something. But anyway, the guy who put it together has sent his assistant to the comic shop, and he came back with a handful of Batman comics. And you'll notice that the very first episode was a Riddler comic, or a Riddler story. Well, the Penguin showed up very quickly as well, which tells me that he probably picked up this issue too. So, because Penguin and Riddler had not been in comics for like a decade and a half. Suddenly they pop up and then bam, they're in the TV series. All right, moving on. The Best of DC number 10 from 1981. This is actually where the origin of the Penguin comes from. High end on this is only $20. Median's $8, low end is $2. Might want to look for this one. Then we jump all the way up to 1995 with Detective Comics number 683. And this is the introduction of the Iceberg Lounge, Penguin's nightclub. We do see that in the movie as well. High end on this is $8, median's $2, low end's just $1. Then we go to Detective Comics number 12 from 2012. This is the first appearance of Emperor Penguin, or Emperor of Blackgate. And this is the high end is only $4, median is $2, low end is $1. And of course, it's Oswald Cobblepot becoming the leader of all the bad guys in Blackgate. So those are our big ones. The greatest names in comics, the great Dick Sprang. I was at San Diego Con many, many, many years ago with an anchor friend of mine named Lee Trotter. And we shared a hotel room. And I was sitting on my bed. He was sitting over on his bed. And as we were talking, he was listing off some of the guests and stuff. I was reading the names of the guests. And I came up to Dick Sprang. And Lee made a sound effect that sticks with me to this day. Because I said Dick Sprang and he went, "Spy-ya-ya-ya-ya-ya-ya." And now whenever I hear the name, I hear that sound. Spy-ya-ya-ya-ya-ya-ya. All right, guys, head off into Easter. Have a great one. Stick around for Miss Jen for the Geek Chat and, of course, SketchUp. And I will see you all next week. Happy Easter to all of you. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Triple B, Jay, and Kenneth popped in, JD on the board. And see you all next week. Good night, everybody.